Here is the cruelest joke of human existence. The more desperately you need love, the more impossible it becomes to receive it. I spent my entire life in Königsberg, never married, rarely traveled beyond my daily walks, and yet I understood something about love that eludes even those surrounded by family and admirers. The people who feel most alone are often drowning in attention. The people who feel most loved are often entirely misunderstood. This is not poetic irony. This is a fundamental error in how we've been taught to perceive our own hearts. And once you see this error clearly, you cannot unsee it. Your loneliness will never feel the same again. You've been taught that love is something you attract through self-improvement, something you earn through being enough, kind enough, interesting enough, beautiful enough. And this teaching has created an entire generation of people performing elaborate emotional theater, terrified that if they stop, they'll be abandoned. This video will dismantle that framework entirely. Here's what you're actually going to learn. Love is not a reward for becoming worthy. It is the practice of treating rational beings, including yourself, as ends in themselves, never merely as means. This isn't romantic poetry. This is moral architecture. And once you understand the difference between love as validation and love as a categorical imperative, a fundamental law of how conscious beings must treat each other, you'll finally understand why you've felt so exhausted, why relationships feel like tests, and why genuine connection has felt so impossibly rare. I'm going to show you that the loneliness epidemic isn't caused by lack of connection. It's caused by a catastrophic misunderstanding of what connection even is. And I'm going to give you a different way to see yourself, others, and this aching need that lives inside you. So stay with me, because what I'm about to share will change not just how you think about love, but how you experience every relationship for the rest of your life. Let me take you somewhere unexpected, not to a moment of romantic triumph, but to the moment I understood what love actually requires of us. It was an ordinary afternoon in my study, the kind of gray autumn day where the light comes through the windows like it's apologizing for existing. There was a knock at my door, and when I opened it, I found a young man standing there, a theology student I'd seen in my lectures. His eyes were red, his hands trembling slightly as he clutched his hat. He asked if he could speak with me privately, and I could see he'd been crying, probably for days. We sat down, and he told me his story. He'd been engaged to a woman for 2 years. They'd planned everything: the wedding, their future home, even the names of their children. And then, 3 weeks before the ceremony, she left him. Not for any dramatic reason. Not because of a betrayal or a fight. She'd simply met someone else, someone wealthier, someone who could provide the kind of life she'd always imagined for herself. And this young man, he was devastated. But it wasn't just the loss of her that was destroying him. It was something deeper, something he could barely articulate through his tears. He looked at me and asked, "Professor Kant, how do I make her love me again? What do I need to become? How do I make myself enough?" And in that question, I heard the echo of 1,000 other questions I'd received over the years. The same desperate arithmetic. If I change this, if I improve that, if I become more of what they want and less of what they don't, then maybe, finally, I'll be worthy of love. I looked at this young man, and I knew I had to tell him something that would sound cruel at first. I said, "You're asking the wrong question. You don't want her to love you. You want her to validate that you're not worthless. But her validation cannot give you worth, because worth is not something others assign. It's something you possess by virtue of being a rational agent capable of moral reasoning." He stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. So I continued, "Let me ask you something. When you picture her coming back to you, what do you actually feel? Is it joy at being with her again? Or is it relief that you're not the failure you're terrified of being?" The question hit him hard. I could see it in his face, the way his expression shifted from confusion to something like recognition, the kind of recognition that hurts because it's true. He sat there in silence for a long time, and then he erupted. "So, I should stop caring? Love doesn't matter? I should just be alone forever and pretend I'm fine with it?" His voice was raw, angry, defensive. And I understood, because what I was saying threatened the entire framework he'd built his life around. I said quietly, "No, Love matters more than anything. But what you're calling love, this desperate need for someone to confirm your existence, this is not love. This is fear dressed in romantic language. Love is when you treat another person as infinitely valuable not because of what they give you, but because of what they are, a conscious being with their own inner universe of thoughts, fears, dreams, desires. She didn't fail to love you. You failed to love her as herself. You loved her as a mirror. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. What do you mean? He asked, his voice smaller now. I loved her. I would have done anything for her. Exactly, I said. You would have done anything for her. But did you ever actually see her? Or did you see her as the person who would finally make you feel complete, worthy, enough? When she talked about her dreams, were you listening to understand who she was, or were you calculating whether those dreams included you? When she was quiet or distant, did you wonder what she was feeling, or did you immediately panic about what it meant for your security? The silence in the room was heavy. He sat there, his shoulders slumping, and I could see something breaking in him. Not breaking like shattering, breaking like a shell cracks when something inside is ready to emerge. I don't know, he finally whispered. I thought I knew her. I thought I loved her. And I said, you love the idea of being loved by her. You love the safety of being chosen. You love the relief of not being alone. But did you ever love her as a person separate from you, with her own complete existence that doesn't revolve around your need? Did you ever respect her enough to let her be free, even if that freedom meant choosing someone else? He started crying again, but it was different this time. Not the desperate, clinging tears of someone trying to hold onto something slipping away. These were the tears of someone seeing themselves clearly for the first time and realizing how much pain they've caused themselves and others by living in delusion. The story doesn't end with reconciliation. He left my study that day, still angry, still hurting, still convinced I didn't understand. But 3 years later, he came back. He knocked on my door on another autumn afternoon, and when I opened it, I saw a completely different person. His eyes were clear. His posture was different. Not the performance of confidence, but the quiet stability of someone who'd found solid ground. He said, "Professor, I need to tell you something. 3 years ago, you said something to me that I hated you for. But you were right. I spent these 3 years alone, not because I was avoiding love, but because I was learning to see people as they actually are instead of as characters in my story. And I've never felt less alone." He paused, and then he said something I'll never forget. "I saw her last month. She's happy. And for the first time, I was happy for her. Not because I've moved on and found someone better, but because I finally understood that her happiness was never about me. She's a person, living her own life, making her own choices. And I spent 2 years trying to make her life about validating mine. No wonder she left. Have you been loving people, or have you been using people as evidence?" That's the question his story raises. And it's a question that haunts most of us, whether we admit it or not. Because if we're honest, truly, uncomfortably honest, most of what we call love is actually a desperate transaction. We're offering performance in exchange for validation. We're offering usefulness in exchange for security. We're offering whatever version of ourselves seems most likely to make someone stay, and we're calling that love. But it's not love. It's negotiation. It's survival. It's the exhausting work of trying to earn something that cannot be earned. Let me give you another way to see this, because I know that story might still feel abstract, still feel like it's about someone else and not about you. So let me tell you about something much simpler, something I did every single day of my adult life. I took walks through Königsberg. Every day, the same route, at exactly the same time. People used to set their clocks by me. They'd see me walking past at precisely 4:30 in the afternoon, and they'd know they were on schedule. Some people found this amusing. Others found it strange. A few found it sad. Poor old Kant, trapped in his routines, never adventuring, never surprising himself, living the same day over and over like he's already dead. But here's what they didn't understand. Every single day, I saw something different. Not because the path changed. The trees were the same trees. The stones beneath my feet were the same stones. The houses I passed were the same houses. The path never changed. But I did. Yesterday, I noticed how the light filters through the oak tree at 4:30, the way it creates these patterns on the ground that shift with the seasons. I stood there for 10 minutes just watching light move through leaves, thinking about how photons travel millions of miles from the sun just to illuminate a specific leaf at a specific moment, and no one's paying attention except me. Today, I'm thinking about duty and whether the stones beneath my feet have moral worth. Tomorrow, I'll notice something else entirely. Maybe the way the butcher's dog always barks twice when I pass, or the expression on the face of the woman who sells flowers, the way her smile changes depending on how many flowers she sold that day. The path never bores me because I'm not walking it to get somewhere. I'm walking it to see, to notice, to witness the infinite complexity hiding inside what appears routine. And this is what love requires. Not new people, not perfect people, not people who constantly stimulate you with novelty and excitement, but the capacity to see infinite depth in what appears ordinary. The person you're bored with? You're not bored with them. You're bored with your own shallow way of seeing. Every human being contains multitudes, thoughts they've never shared because you've never created the safety for them to share, fears they've never named because you've been too busy talking about your own, entire inner worlds you've never bothered to explore because you were too busy scanning them for what they could give you. I never married. People assume this means I don't understand love, that I'm speaking from ignorance, that my philosophy is just abstraction disconnected from the messy reality of human intimacy. But I chose not to marry precisely because I understood love too well. I watched people enter into bonds built on dependency, on need, on the desperate hope that another person would finally make them feel whole. I watched them trap each other with their neediness, burden each other with their constant requirement for reassurance, slowly suffocate under the weight of expectations neither of them could ever meet. And I refused to participate in that system. I refused to imprison someone with my need or allow myself to be imprisoned by theirs. Better to be alone, truly alone, than to pretend that mutual desperation is intimacy. What would you see if you stopped looking at people as supporting characters in your story? That's the question the walking metaphor raises. Because right now, most of you are moving through your relationships like tourists rushing through a museum, barely glancing at each painting before moving to the next, scanning for whatever catches your eye, whatever makes you feel something, whatever validates the ticket price. You're not actually looking. You're not actually seeing. You're just consuming, taking what you need, and moving on when the stimulation fades. And then you wonder why you feel empty. You wonder why connection feels so rare. You wonder why you can feel surrounded by people and still utterly alone. The answer is brutal but liberating. You're alone because you're not actually showing up. You're sending a representative, a carefully edited version of yourself designed to be palatable, acceptable, non-threatening. And you're not meeting people. You're meeting their representatives. Two performances pretending to be intimate while both of you are terrified that if you stop performing, the other person will leave. This is what passes for love in our world. This is what we've settled for. And it's killing us slowly, this loneliness inside connection, this isolation inside intimacy. And this is not just wrong, it's spiritually corrosive. It's poison dressed as wisdom. Here's why. The moment you accept that your worth is conditional on meeting certain criteria, you enter an infinite regress of anxiety. You can never be enough because enough is defined by someone else's subjective standards, which shift constantly based on their mood, their history, their own wounds and insecurities. You become a performance, not a person. You become a product trying to find a market. You start editing yourself in real time, translating your actual thoughts and feelings into something more digestible, more acceptable, more likely to make someone stay. And this is exhausting. This is why you feel tired all the time, even when you haven't done anything physically demanding. You're exhausted from the constant work of trying to be someone other than who you are. But here's the truth underneath that lie. You possess intrinsic dignity simply by being a rational agent capable of self-determination. This isn't self-help. This isn't me trying to make you feel better with empty affirmations. This is metaphysics. This is the fundamental structure of reality. You are an end in yourself, never merely a means to someone else's happiness, validation, or comfort. Your worth doesn't come from what you accomplish, what you look like, how interesting you are, or how well you meet someone else's needs. Your worth comes from the bare fact of your existence as a conscious being capable of moral reasoning, capable of making choices, capable of experiencing the world from inside your own unique perspective. And everyone you meet carries this same intrinsic worth. The person who rejected you, the person who hurt you, the person who failed to see you, they have it too. Their behavior toward you doesn't diminish your worth, and your worth doesn't depend on their recognition. This is not a democracy. You don't need votes to confirm your value. You have it by virtue of existing as a rational being, and nothing can take it away. Love, then, is not about earning or deserving. It's about recognizing this dignity in yourself and others and acting accordingly. When you treat someone with respect, not because they please you, but because they are a sovereign being worthy of respect, that is love. When you refuse to reduce yourself to a product seeking buyers, when you show up as you actually are and trust that your existence has value regardless of whether someone else recognizes it, that is self-love. Not the self-love that's about bubble baths and positive affirmations, but the deep, structural self-love that says, I will not betray myself to make you comfortable. I will not perform to earn what I already possess. And here's the paradox that will change everything. The moment you stop trying to earn love, you become capable of receiving it, because you're no longer translating it through the filter of validation. Someone can say, I love you, and instead of immediately scanning their face for evidence of whether they really mean it, whether you've finally done enough to deserve it, whether this means you're safe now, you can just receive it. You can let it land. You can say thank you, not because you earned it, but because they chose to offer it, and you're free to receive what's freely given. How many versions of yourself have you abandoned in the pursuit of being loved? Think about that for a moment. How many times have you felt something true? Anger, fear, disagreement, desire, boredom, confusion, and immediately suppressed it because you were afraid it would make you less lovable? How many interests have you pretended to have? How many opinions have you hidden? How many parts of yourself have you amputated because they didn't fit the image of who you thought you needed to be? I'm going to guess it's most of you. Most of who you actually are has been carefully hidden away, kept in storage, because you learned early that the real you wasn't acceptable. Maybe you were too loud, too quiet, too emotional, too detached, too much, too little, too something. And someone, probably someone you loved, communicated to you that you needed to change. So you did. You learned to laugh at jokes you didn't find funny. You learned to mirror other people's energy to seem compatible. You learned to edit your stories to be more entertaining, your opinions to be less controversial, your needs to be less demanding. You learned to translate yourself into something more palatable. And now you're walking around in this carefully constructed costume, wondering why you feel so lonely even when people say they love you. It's because they don't love you. They love the performance. They love the version of you that's been carefully designed to meet their needs without challenging them. And on some level, you know this. You know that if you stop performing, if you let them see the parts of you that are messy or difficult or inconvenient, they might leave. So you keep performing. And the distance between who you are and who you're pretending to be gets wider and wider, until you can barely remember what the truth of you even feels like. This is the cost of accepting conditional worth. You don't just lose other people, you lose yourself. And no amount of external validation can fill that void, because what you're actually hungry for is the experience of being seen as you actually are and not rejected. But you can't be seen if you're not showing yourself. So you're trapped in this impossible loop, desperate to be loved, but too terrified to let anyone see what they'd actually be loving. The second lie is the lie of emotional dependency. You've been taught that love means needing someone, that if you don't feel incomplete without them, if you don't ache in their absence, if you don't think about them constantly, if your happiness isn't dependent on their presence, then it's not real love. Romance novels, films, songs, poetry, all of them celebrate this desperate, consuming need as proof of authentic feeling. I can't live without you. You complete me. I'm nothing without you. These are supposed to be romantic. These are supposed to be the highest expression of love. But need is not love. Need is need. And building your identity around emotional dependency doesn't create intimacy. It creates hostage situations. You become terrified of their absence because your sense of self is so entangled with them that you don't know who you are when they're gone. They become burdened by your constant requirement for reassurance, your need for them to prove over and over that they're not leaving, that you're still enough, that everything's okay. Both of you are trapped in a cycle of anxiety masquerading as devotion. I see this everywhere. People who call it love when they can't function without constant contact. People who call it love when they need to know where the other person is at all times. People who call it love when they feel physical pain at the thought of separation. People who call it love when they've organized their entire life around making sure the other person never leaves. This isn't love. This is fear. This is the terror of being alone with yourself, projected onto another person and called romance. The truth underneath this lie is simple but radical. Love is the free choice to respect, honor, and treat someone as intrinsically valuable. Not because you need them to complete you, but because they exist as a full, complete person already. The greatest gift you can give someone is not your need, but your freedom. To say, I don't need you to validate my existence, but I choose to walk beside you because I respect who you are. I'm not with you because I'll fall apart without you. I'm with you because I value your existence, your perspective, your way of being in the world. And I'm offering you the same freedom. The freedom to be yourself without the burden of holding me together. This is why I never married. People assume it's because I was too cold, too intellectual, too removed from human emotion to form intimate bonds. But it was the opposite. I refused to enter into a bond built on dependency rather than mutual respect and rational choice. I refused to say, I love you, when what I really meant was, I need you to make me feel less terrified of my own existence. Better to be alone, genuinely alone, than to imprison someone with my need or allow myself to be imprisoned by theirs. And here's what people misunderstand about this. Choosing to be alone is not the same as being incapable of connection. I had deep friendships. I had students I cared for profoundly. I had dinner parties and conversations that lasted until dawn. I had connection. What I didn't have was dependency dressed as devotion. I didn't have the exhausting dance of two people clinging to each other out of terror and calling it intimacy. The paradox here is profound. Only when you are complete alone can you truly be with someone. Because then you're offering companionship, not filling a void. You're choosing them from a place of freedom, not desperation. You're saying, I want to share my life with you, instead of I need you to give my life meaning. And that distinction, that subtle but enormous distinction, is the difference between love and consumption. Are you choosing people, or are you clutching them? Be honest with yourself. When you think about the person you love, or the person you want to love, what do you actually feel? Is it appreciation for who they are, or is it need? Is it respect for their autonomy, or is it anxiety about their independence? Is it joy in witnessing them, or is it relief that they're witnessing you? Are you celebrating their existence, or are you auditing their behavior for evidence that they're not going to leave? Most of you are clutching. Most of you are holding so tight you're leaving marks. And you call this love, but it's suffocation. It's the desperation of someone drowning trying to pull someone else under to stay afloat. And both of you are sinking. The third lie is the lie of reciprocal transaction. You've been taught that love is about balance. I give, you give. I meet your needs, you meet mine. Fair exchange. 50-50. Mutual benefit. If I'm doing more than you, the relationship is unbalanced. If you're giving more than you're getting, you're being taken advantage of. Keep score. Make sure it's fair. Make sure you're not being a doormat. Make sure you're getting your money's worth. This turns love into commerce. And while commercial relationships have their place, they're how we organize most of society, how we exchange goods and services, how we create systems of mutual benefit. They're not love. They're contracts. And the moment you start tallying who gave more, who sacrificed more, who loves more, you've left the territory of genuine care and entered the marketplace. You've reduced a human being to a transaction partner. You've reduced yourself to a vendor offering services and expecting payment. I can tell you from decades of watching this pattern play out, nothing corrodes connection faster than scorekeeping. Nothing creates resentment faster than the constant calculation of whether you're giving more than you're receiving. Because here's what happens. You do something kind for someone, but you're not doing it freely. You're doing it with an expectation of return. When they don't reciprocate in exactly the way you expected, exactly when you expected it, you feel cheated. You start keeping a mental ledger of everything you've done and everything they haven't done. Every act of kindness becomes a debt they owe you. Every moment you show up becomes ammunition for the argument about how they're not showing up enough. And on the other side, they can feel this. They can sense that your kindness comes with strings attached, that your love has terms and conditions, that they're being evaluated for compliance. So they start keeping their own ledger. They start doing things not because they want to, but because they need to balance the scales. Both of you are trapped in this exhausting accounting system. Both of you feeling like you're giving more than you're getting, both of you building resentment, and neither of you experiencing anything close to actual love. The truth underneath this lie is what I call the categorical imperative. Act only according to principles you could will to be universal laws. Let me translate that into simpler language. Treat people the way all people should be treated, regardless of what you get back. Not because you're a martyr, not because you're a doormat, not because your needs don't matter, but because this is what rationality demands when faced with another conscious being. You respect them because they warrant respect, not because they're respecting you back. You tell the truth because rational beings deserve truth, not because honesty benefits you. You honor their autonomy because autonomy is a fundamental right of conscious beings, not because it will make them like you more. Your moral action towards someone is not contingent on their response. It's not a negotiation. It's not conditional. You treat them with dignity because that's what treating a human being properly looks like. Now, I need to be very clear about something because I know some of you are thinking, so I should just let people walk all over me? I should accept mistreatment because treating them with respect is a categorical imperative? No, absolutely not. Treating someone with respect includes respecting yourself enough to maintain boundaries, to refuse mistreatment, to walk away from situations that harm you. Respect doesn't mean submission. It means treating people, including yourself, as ends in themselves, never merely as means. So if someone is using you, manipulating you, lying to you, hurting you, you can recognize their intrinsic human dignity while also refusing to participate in a dynamic that violates yours. You can treat them with the basic respect owed to any conscious being while also saying, I will not continue to be in relationship with you because your behavior is incompatible with my well-being. Those two things are not contradictory. What I'm talking about is letting go of the ledger. Letting go of the constant calculation of whether you're giving more than you're receiving. When you stop keeping score, you stop feeling like you're losing. Because the exhaustion you feel in relationships, that bone-deep tiredness that makes you want to just give up, it doesn't come from giving too much. It comes from constantly calculating whether you're giving more than you're getting. It comes from the mental energy of auditing every interaction, weighing every action, keeping a running tally of debts and credits. Imagine what would change if you just stopped. If you just did what felt right in each moment without keeping track. If you showed up when you wanted to show up, not because you owed it or because you wanted them to owe you. If you told the truth because truth matters, not because it might benefit you. If you respected someone's autonomy because autonomy is sacred, not because it makes them respect yours. If you loved without auditing, what would it feel like to love without auditing? Just sit with that question for a moment. What would change if you approached every relationship without the spreadsheet, without the constant mental calculation of fairness, without the resentment that builds when you perceive imbalance? My guess is you'd feel lighter. You'd have more energy. You'd show up more fully, more freely, because you wouldn't be doing everything with an invisible price tag attached. And here's what I've observed happens when people actually practice this. The right people respond with reciprocal freedom. They feel the absence of obligation, and they relax into genuine generosity. The wrong people take advantage, and That's actually useful information. Because now you know, now you can make a clear decision about whether to continue the relationship based on their actual character, not based on whether you've invested enough to justify staying. So what is love, actually? After all this dismantling, after I've taken apart every romantic notion you've been taught, what's left? What am I actually pointing toward? Love is the recognition of inherent dignity, yours and theirs, and the disciplined practice of never treating conscious beings as mere tools for your happiness. It's showing up with honesty even when lying would be easier, because rational beings deserve truth. It's listening to understand, not to formulate your response, because each person contains an entire universe of experience that deserves to be witnessed. It's respecting someone's autonomy even when their choices hurt you, because their freedom is not less important than your comfort. It's refusing to manipulate, even when manipulation would give you what you want, because using people as means violates their fundamental dignity. This sounds demanding. It is. Love is not a feeling that happens to you like weather, like something you catch and then passively experience. Love is a discipline you choose. It's moral rigor applied to how you treat the people in front of you. It's the daily practice of seeing clearly and acting accordingly. It's hard work. It requires constant attention. It requires you to fight against every impulse towards self-centeredness, every tendency to use people, every desire to make yourself the center of their universe. But here's what no one tells you. This kind of love, grounded in respect rather than need, is the only kind that doesn't corrode over time. Passion fades. Everyone knows this. The intensity of new love, the obsession, the constant desire, it diminishes. That's just biology. Infatuation dies. It's designed to die. It's an evolutionary mechanism to get you close enough to bond, and then it recedes. Need becomes resentment. When your sense of self is dependent on someone else, their inevitable failure to perfectly meet your needs creates a slow-building anger that poisons everything. But respect deepens as you witness more of who someone truly is. The longer you practice actually seeing someone, not as a function in your life, but as a complete, infinitely complex person, the more there is to respect. The more you discover depths you didn't know were there. The more you appreciate the particularity of their way of being, their way of thinking, their specific configuration of hopes and fears and quirks and contradictions. The people who feel most loved aren't those who found someone who completes them. They're the ones who found someone who sees them completely and chooses to honor what they see. Not someone who needs them, but someone who respects them. Not someone who's performing for them, but someone who shows up honestly. Not someone who's clutching them in desperation, but someone who's walking beside them in freedom. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is beautiful in theory, Immanuel, but how do I actually live this way? How do I start? I've spent my whole life doing it the other way. I've built all my relationships on need and performance and scorekeeping. I don't even know what it would look like to do it differently. So let me give you something concrete. These aren't exercises to make you more lovable. These are practices to align your actions with the reality of human dignity, starting with your own. First practice, the dignity audit. For the next week, I want you to notice every time you treat yourself as a means to an end rather than an end in yourself. Every time you skip a meal because you're not productive enough to deserve eating. Every time you force yourself to be pleasant when you're actually angry because you fear someone will withdraw affection if you show real emotion. Every time you dismiss your own needs as less important than someone else's comfort. Every time you push yourself past exhaustion because you believe rest has to be earned. Every time you apologize for existing, for taking up space, for having needs, for being inconvenient. Write these moments down, not to shame yourself. Shaming yourself is just another way of treating yourself as something that needs to be fixed before it deserves love. Write them down to witness the pattern, because you cannot love others as ends in themselves if you're treating yourself as a tool for earning approval, as a means to the end of finally being enough. You have to start seeing how automatically you betray your own dignity, how reflexively you reduce yourself to a function. Then, for each moment you notice, ask yourself, what would I do right now if I truly believed I possessed intrinsic worth? If I really believed my value wasn't conditional on meeting certain criteria, wasn't dependent on others' approval, wasn't something I had to earn, would I say yes to this request? Would I tolerate this treatment? Would I hide this part of myself? Would I push through this pain? Start small. Start with one moment of radical self-respect per day. Maybe it's saying no to something you don't want to do without offering an elaborate excuse. Maybe it's letting yourself be angry without immediately suppressing it to keep the peace. Maybe it's taking up space without apologizing. Maybe it's resting when you're tired instead of pushing through. Maybe it's sharing a real opinion instead of just agreeing with whatever everyone else thinks. One moment, one act of treating yourself like your dignity matters. Second practice, the listening practice. Choose one person in your life, friend, family member, partner, doesn't matter, and commit to one conversation this week where you listen with zero agenda. Not listening to respond, not listening to fix their problem, not listening to judge whether you agree or disagree with what they're saying, not listening to find the opening to redirect the conversation to your own experience. Just listening to understand how the world appears from inside their consciousness. This is harder than it sounds. Your mind will constantly want to jump in. You'll think of something they said 5 minutes ago that you want to address. You'll think of advice you want to give. You'll think of a similar story from your own life. Notice those impulses and let them go. Come back to actually hearing what they're saying. Ask open questions, not leading questions designed to guide them toward a conclusion you already have. Open questions. What's that been like for you? How would that make you feel? What do you think about when you can't sleep? What would you do if you weren't afraid? And then practice the hardest part, receiving their answers without making it about you. Don't redirect to your own story. Don't offer solutions unless they explicitly ask for advice. Don't judge or critique. Just witness another human being revealing their interior world. This is love as practice,